Did Horus kill 2 Primarchs with his Talon? That's the question I asked myself after reading back over the Black Legion and Talon of Horus novels. I was compiling notes and thoughts to put together a video on a new series focusing on the most epic duels in Warhammer 40k lore. And thought I'd start with the absolutely awesome duel between Abaddon the Despoiler and Sigismund. While reading, I came across a couple of lines that really made me question what I had previously taken for granted and didn't notice fully. Abaddon tells Sigismund that the Talon of Horus had killed 2 Primarchs as well as mortally wounding the Emperor himself. That if Sigismund would have just joined him, then his blood would not have had to mix with that of the Emperor upon the claws. And who would really think that would work talking to a Space Marine, let alone the single most fanatical of all Space Marines probably ever? That's literally motivation for the Templar Abaddon. From Black Legion, Iskandar Khayan speaks with Abaddon as he lies nearly dead, completely brutalized by his battle with Sigismund. "Tell me something," I said, "before I leave."
"Speak."
"Sigismund, how did he wound you?" Abaddon fell silent, the vicious vitality of ambition bleeding away. The black rebreather covered much of his face, and the murk occluded some of his expression. But I believe for the very first time, I saw something like shame flicker across my lord's face. How curious.
"He wouldn't die,"
Abaddon said at last, thoughtful and low.
"He just wouldn't die."
I did not need to skim his mind of insight. Just from his tone, I knew what had happened. He baited you. You were lost to rage. I saw the muscles of Abaddon's jaw and throat clench as he ground his teeth.
"It was over before I knew he had struck me. I couldn't breathe. I felt no pain, but I couldn't breathe. The black sword was buried to the hilt, like the old man had sheathed it inside my chest."
Ezekiel's voice was soft across the speakers, cushioned by the bitterness and fascination of reflection. His words were almost staccato whispers, each one a drop of acid on bare flesh.
"The only way to kill me was to welcome his own death, and he did it the moment the chance arose. We were face to face like that, with his blade through my body. My armor sparked. It failed. I lashed back. His blood soaked the Talon. He fell."
I remained quiet, letting Abaddon's tale unspool. His eyes were looking through me, not seeing what was, but what had been.
"He wasn't dead, Khayan. He was on the floor, sprawled like a corpse, disemboweled and torn in two, but he still lived. I was on my knees, forcing my dead lungs to keep breathing, kneeling over him like an apothecary. The black sword was still through me. Our eyes met. He spoke."
I did not ask Abaddon to tell me. I reached into his thoughts then, tentatively at first in case he rebuffed my presence. Then I closed my eyes, and I saw. The Black Knight, fallen and ripped apart, his sword brethren gone or dead. I did not know which. Red staining Sigismund's tabard, red decorating the deck beneath and around him, red in Abaddon's eyes misting his sight. Blood. So much blood. Here at the last he looked every one of his years, with time's lines cracking his face. He looked upwards at the chamber's ornate ceiling, his eyes lifted as if in reverence to the master of mankind upon his throne of old. Sigismund's hand trembled, still twitching, seeking his fallen sword.
"No,"
Abaddon murmured with brotherly gentleness, through the running of his blood and the heaving of his chest.
"No, it's over. Sleep now, in the failure you have earned."
The knight's fingertips scraped the hilt of his blade, so very close, yet he lacked the strength to move even that far. His face was the bloodless blue of the newly dead, yet he still breathed.
"Sigismund,"
Abaddon said, through lips darkened by his own lifeblood.
"This claw has killed 2 Primarchs. It wounded the Emperor unto death. I would have spared it the taste of your life as well, if you could have only seen what I have seen."
As I stared through Abaddon's eyes, I confess, I expected the triteness of some knightly oath, or a final murmur in the Emperor's name. Instead, the ruined thing that had been the first captain of the Imperial Fists and High Marshal of the Black Templars spoke through a mouthful of blood, committing the last of his life to biting off each word, ensuring he spoke each one in shivering, sanguine clarity. You will die as your weakling father died, soulless, honorless, weeping, ashamed. Sigismund's last word was also his last breath. It sighed out of his mouth, taking his soul with it. I think for Sigismund, knowing that he died by the weapon that killed the Emperor and Sanguinius is like a dream come true. An Astartes of his stature's death is an epic thing. And to die in battle against the arch-enemy and die by such a legendary weapon, I mean, that even sounds good to me, and I'm no space marine. Glorious indeed. So he straight up tells Sigismund that the Talon has killed 2 Primarchs, and for years I thought that he meant the Clone of Horus was one of them. But then I remembered another line from when Abaddon faced the Clone of Horus, from the Talon of Horus. The Despoiler slew the abomination that Fabius Bile created in his gene lab, garbed in the serpent's scales and armed with Worldbreaker, the great maul of Horus Lupercal, and it was quite a fight indeed. But when you add what Abaddon says to the Clone of Horus, and what he says to Sigismund together, I think we've been deliberately misdirected. The Games Workshop and Black Library have been playing 3-card Monty with us, and it's a rigged game. Father and son faced each other, breathing spite into each other's snarling features. For the first time, the Primarch spoke. Spit stringed between his teeth. They were clean and unmarked, not etched with Chthonian hieroglyphs as Abaddon's were.
That is my Talon.
Abaddon closed his fist. Worldbreaker broke as Cern had broken, shattering against a superior weapon. Scrap metal fell from Abaddon's scythed fingers. I have heard the stories of this moment. Perhaps even you, here in the deepest depths of the Imperium, have heard them as well. Every warband has their own reflection of these events. Many are the tales of Horus's last words, his entreaties to his gathered sons and nephews, how he gave a glorious speech about the possibilities of a new era, or how he begged for mercy when faced with Justarian blades. There are even stories that swear Horus was swollen with the blessings of the Pantheon, as he was in the last days of the Terran War, and that the gods themselves had resurrected their fallen champion. But I was there. There were no touching last words or rousing speeches, and the gods, if present at all, remained silent and aloof. Life rarely grants us the same theater as we find in legends. So I promise you this, as the account of one who was there that day, there was no divine champion granted sacred rebirth. There was no impassioned judgment delivered by Abaddon as destiny changed hands from one war master to the next. There was a cloned father and a prodigal son, surrounded by the dead and the wounded, so similar that only by their weapons and wounds could I tell them apart. That and their different smiles. Horus gave a conqueror's smirk from what remained of his face. Recognition, true recognition, flared in the only eye he had left.
Ezekiel.
His voice was a breath of relief and revelation.
It is you. It's you, my brother.
Time stood still. After everything that had taken place, I thought, against all reason and rhyme, that they would embrace his kindred.
My son,
said the Primarch.
My son.
All 5 of Abaddon's claws rammed so deeply into Horus's chest that they burst from his back. The scythes pushed out the stunted remains of Telemacin's swords, sending the broken blades clattering against the floor. Dark redness spread across what was left of the white fur cloak draped in tatters across Horus's shoulders. A genetic god's blood rained down over me. I felt like laughing without knowing why. Shock, perhaps? Shock and naked relief. The storm bolter on the Talon's back kicked 3 times, burying 6 bolts inside Horus's exposed chest and neck. They blasted him apart from within, adding viscera to the blood slopping across those of us left prone. And that was how they stood, as gold flared in the eyes of one, and life faded from the eyes of the other. Horus's knees buckled, but Abaddon would not let him fall. Horus's mouth worked, but no sound came forth. If his last words found any voice, Abaddon was the only one to hear it. I was fortunate that day, not just because I survived a battle with a demigod that should never have been fought, but because I heard Abaddon's last words to his father. With a slow, smooth withdrawal, he pulled the taloned shear of his father's body, and the moment before Horus fell, the moment before the light finally went out in the Primarch's eyes, Abaddon whispered 5 soft words.
I am not your son.
And it all comes down to that line, I am not your son. It could just as easily have been said, you are not my father. The clone does not have the soul of Horus. The warp entity that the Emperor shoved into a body of super soldier flesh crafted from his own genes. And it showed. He could not even stand up to a being that should have been his lesser by far. Abaddon prevailed and even smashed Worldbreaker, a feat that I am still wondering how he pulled off. But he doesn't recognize the clone as his father, and that tells me that he doesn't recognize the clone as a true Primarch. Okay, so if the Claw killed 2 Primarchs, and the clone of Horus is not one of them, who are they? Well, very obviously Sanguinius, sure, that's a given. But everyone else is accounted for, except for the Forgotten and the Purged, and Omegon. And we haven't gotten to the Scouring series yet, but we'll get there soon enough as the series is now announced officially. Perhaps it is Omegon indeed, and maybe that will be talked about in hindsight from someone who would have been there to see it during the heresy. But it seems more fitting to me that perhaps the great game of Galactic Telephone was played and nearly everyone forgot. I'd bet that Horus slew the Primarch of the Second Legion. We know one was forgotten and one was purged. And I'd put my money on purged as a nice way of saying slain by the Imperium. We get so many hints and clues that the wolves had something to do with it. But what if it was not the Space Wolves, but the Luna Wolves that delivered the coup de grace to the Second Legion's Primarch? Russ at first was the little brother who just wanted to be like Horus, the second found Primarch, etc. Russ may have had no problem at all with people thinking he did it. Or perhaps he assisted Horus. But either way, it is looking like a serious possibility that the Talon of Horus ended the life of the Purged. There's no way at all that Abaddon meant the clone of Horus. It was an abomination, an incomplete, imperfect being. Not the gene son of the Emperor of Mankind himself and the gene father of a legion of Space Marines. Sometimes these little clues slip through the cracks and get noticed on a second read-through. And I cannot suggest reading these books enough. They are amazing. The best sorcerer character in Warhammer, Iskander Khaen, features prominently and is basically Abaddon's right-hand man in the series. I have to say, when you see how he thinks and why, Abaddon the Despoiler is actually quite an awesome character. People say he's a terrible villain, but I say they got it wrong. He's a hero in his own mind. From his own point of view, he's the hero. And that sort of delusion, that blind spot that exists where the self-awareness that any regular person would have should exist, is what makes him compelling. He's absolutely evil and a thrall, and yet is completely unaware of that and is projecting harder than Winehammer kids in the comments section. But there's another option. Abaddon claims the Claw killed 2 Primarchs. He doesn't say that Horus wielded it. It could very easily have been the Despoiler himself, especially if we consider Omegon or Alfarius, if you are one of those that believes that Rogel Dorn killed Omegon posing as Alfarius. Whoever it was, they certainly died before the First Black Crusade, and so that takes many Primarchs off the table, as that occurred in the 31st millennium. Rogel Dorn, for example, didn't disappear until the 32nd millennium. I am now really wondering what happened, and Occam's razor is telling me that the simplest answer is the truth. So in my mind, that means Horus was the one who put down the second Primarch. Perhaps Russ and his wolves were there, perhaps the 11th lives on and is in or was in the dark cells of Terra, but all this points to one of the lost Primarchs being dead by the hand of the War Master. Considering all possibilities though, imagine how upset Horus would feel if he found out that Alfarius had a twin and they had been playing him. Omegon may have gone to treat with Horus and been speared by the claws, invited to dinner, but it was a red wedding sort of event. I mean, Horus is not one to take deception lightly. And if they didn't outright tell him right away, which we know they absolutely did not do, he would have killed the twins for hiding it from him. Horus is that kind of a guy. An absolutist. A tyrant that has no room for disloyalty and, as corruption sets in, a hair-trigger temper. For if simply disagreeing with him is disloyalty in his mind, what would outright deception earn you? Horus may have been made War Master for a reason. He was willing to kill his brothers. Even the one he loved above all others, and the one he respected, even considered an equal, the great angel Sanguinius. If he slew one of the Lost Primarchs, that would certainly explain Rogal Dorn's reaction to Malcador, restoring his memories. And it would explain why Malcador choked Horus out for almost uttering one of the Lost Primarch's names, nearly killing him. Horus was practical to a fault before his corruption, and faulty in practice as it set in. Now, some will say that Horus didn't get the Talon until his triumph at Ullanor and ascension to War Master, but there are multiple origin stories for the weapon, and nobody really knows the truth for sure. Most believe that it was a gift from the Emperor, along with his elevation, sure, but there are those who maintain the Dark Mechanicum created it, that Master Adept Urtzi Malevolus under Traitor Fabricator General Kelbor Hall crafted it. And yet others who claim it is an ancient relic from the Dark Age of technology that was found upon Chthonia, and Horus had it possibly before even meeting his father. Whatever the true origin of the Talon of Horus is, we are unlikely to ever know for certain. One of the great mysteries of Warhammer 40k. And now it is that much more enigmatic, for we know it slew 2 Primarchs. One thing Abaddon is not is a liar. He's got a solid sense of honor, justice, and loyalty. He's just not down with the Imperium. But that doesn't mean he's Abaddon the Deceiver. He would not try to front on Sigismund and act like that claw had done more than it had. Nor would he have considered that clone of Horus a true Primarch, and probably wouldn't have even mentioned him. He had too much respect for Sigismund for that. And when I say respect, Abaddon had the utmost for his loyalist brother, the Black Knight. Which is the interesting thing in their battle. Abaddon respects the hell out of Sigismund, but the son of Rogal Dorn does not reciprocate. He may have once respected or even admired Abaddon. As the first captain of the Luna Wolves and Sons of Horus, he was among the mightiest warriors of the Imperium at one point. But that respect and admiration is long gone, consumed by bitter hatred. Abaddon bears no such resentment or hatred for Sigismund. To the despoiler, Sigismund is a brother. In fact, all Astartes are brothers to Abaddon. He actually hates that he has to slay his own kind because he chose so poorly so long ago to follow the fool Horus, the fool who slew 2 Primarchs with his vicious Talon. And it is likely we will know the truth of such events one day, and the exact details behind them. Whether it is the introverted, as noted by Fulgrim, Primarch of the 2nd Legion, one of the twins, Alpharius Omegon, or even the most unlikely event that it was the 11th, someone bearing the title Primarch died upon those wicked blades that make up the Talon of Horus. And to those who think that Abby would have dishonored Sigismund and lied to him, please have a look at the respect he bestowed upon the knight, even going so far as to have his corpse returned to the Imperium, black blade and all, as a sign of reverence for him, for a time when they were brothers. That's just not in Abaddon's nature. He may be evil, and he may be manipulative of those he considers beneath him, but even as he recovers from his life-threatening impalement by the Black Blade, he considers Sigismund at least an equal, if not his better, and that is worth more than gold to Abaddon. He's complicated like that. Respect isn't necessarily something he has for everyone, and ironically, often something he doesn't have for his own allies. The fact that he has it for a mortal enemy, and so much of it, is the part that seals the deal for me. That claw killed 2 Primarchs, and we're just getting started. Kill for the living, kill for the dead. Lupercal, Lupercal.